Welcome to the Global Lane. I'm Gary Lane. On today's Where in the World, Wilson Chowdhry from the British Pakistani Christian Association will talk about the Islamization of Britain and how tough action against anti-apostasy crimes is needed to save Christian lives and Western culture. Next, Ben Goldstein, founder and head instructor at the Israeli Combat Training Center. He'll talk to us about his patrol route in Jerusalem. And on to the Homefront, we'll talk with CBN News national security reporter Erik Rosales about how North Korea is inching closer to striking the U.S. with a nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile. And is the term Islamic terrorism offensive? See what some Americans said. And CBN's Emily Jones will take on that, as well as the anti-Israel culture that is sweeping across U.S. college campuses. And on Set It Straight today, where did all the men go? Yes, we're asking ourselves that question every day. The Conservative Millennial, Allie Stuckey, will be here to tell us how feminism and demasculizing men is hurting millennials. And lastly, on Driving It Home, Americans paying $700 million for terrorism. Yes, you heard me right. And it all starts right now, right here on the Global Lane. Up front today, where in the world? Religious liberty in the United Kingdom and the right to choose your faith without facing persecution. Member of Parliament Martin Day has received approval to push for House debate at Westminster on combating anti-apostasy. As you may know, the UK has tough hate speech laws, and police have arrested evangelists for preaching on the street against homosexuality. So as the British government pushes forward against so-called hate speech and hate crimes, Mr. Day is pushing forward against apostasy hatred. Often when Muslims and others immigrate to the UK and then come to faith in Christ, they're ostracized and even physically attacked by family members, friends, and neighbors. Now, the British Pakistani Christians organization has documented many of these anti-apostasy crimes in the UK. And its chairman, Wilson Chowdhry, says something must be done by the British government to stop this from happening. He joins us now via Skype from London. Wilson, thanks so much for joining us. So how bad is it in the UK? You'd think those who convert to Christianity wouldn't face the same persecution that they experience back at home in their home countries like Pakistan. Well, what's happening there?
It's extremely difficult for those who choose to leave the Islamic faith. In particular, I can share two case studies. One was Faisal Bashir, a man who lived behind at the BPCA offices. We actually are next door to a mosque. This man was told by police that they couldn't help him. Every night he was being threatened. His wife and children were insulted, spat at. His vehicle was being vandalized. More to the point as well, he was told, he was often rung in the middle of the night by people telling him that Sharia police were coming to arrest him and that he would be put away, believing that he was going to be kidnapped, beaten and potentially killed. But then we have Nissa Hussain, a man who for 17 years has suffered extreme persecution in Britain. At least 6 times a year his car would be smashed to pieces and burnt. He would have fireworks thrown at his home. He was beaten to a pulp by 2 men with pickaxe handles in November 2015.
Why do you need another law?
Well, we don't need another law. We need a reform. Is
it re-educating the police then?
Well, it's a number of things. Firstly, we have to classify apostasy hatred in the Race and Religious Hatred Act so it can be utilised properly to protect apostates. And as soon as they register a complaint, it's recognised as apostasy hatred and not a hatred against Christians. The police were saying that other Christians aren't being persecuted, so why is Nissa making these stories up? It must simply be a neighbourhood dispute. Secondly, yes, we need to provide training. So policing protocol will need to change, policing policy will need to change, but also government policy towards how apostates are treated. There was no counselling, there was absolutely no charities equipped at that point in time to assist apostates because it's very hard to distinguish exactly how many apostates exist in this country. So there are no resources set aside to assist them.
And when do you expect debate on this to begin?
Well, we're hoping to bump up our existing report sometime in the next 2 months or so.
How concerned should Americans be, and what can we do about this?
Well, Islam does seem to be growing in both Western nations, both America and Britain. And so things that happen here will definitely mirror themselves in America at some point in time. So yes, there is a need to be alert about this and to understand the underlying principle behind the hatred that comes out. I mean, in particular, I think I should read from a hadith. Now, a hadith is one of the religious books. It's the words of the prophets or the prophets' associates, and often is regarded to have equal status or equal authority to the Quran itself. And Bukhari in Hadith 984.57 said, "The Prophet said, whoever changed his Islamic religion, then kill him." Now, there are 2 studies here in Britain referring to the number of apostates from Islam to Christianity or atheism or other secular faiths, or no faith, and they're suggesting that 350 people every year are seeking counselling from a group called the Council of Ex-Muslims in Britain. That's a significant figure. However, the Quillen Foundation, a Muslim NGO, stated that 100,000 people are converted to Islam every year in Britain, but at least 50% of them become apostates within the first year, a further 25% within preceding years. Now, if you consider that, that would suggest that there possibly are hundreds of thousands of apostates in this country.
In recent days, Israelis have suffered some turbulent times, and the country is on edge. About 2 weeks ago, 2 border policemen were murdered by Arabs in Jerusalem. That led to the placement of metal detectors on the Temple Mount. Riots from Muslims and threatened relations with Jordan ensued. Now, Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu decided to remove those metal detectors. He wanted to defuse what could have easily evolved into another full-blown intifada. So in the midst of all this, on the evening of July 21st in Halamish, the Solomon family sat down for a nice Sabbath dinner, just like you or your family might do on Sunday after church. Palestinian terrorist Omar El-Abed climbed the fence around the Jewish settlement, and he burst into the Solomon home, stabbing to death 70-year-old Yosef and 2 of his children. Now, moments after those brutal murders, Ben Goldstein took to Facebook Live to show the world how he spends his nights patrolling Israeli neighborhoods to keep slumbering residents safe. And that video went viral. Here's a brief clip of it. He sums it up well.
Well, I'm out right now, fully armored up, lit up for the whole world to see, to protect the children in this community while they sleep. Not one Arab community in this entire land needs a camera or a fence line or a radar system or a security patrol to protect them from the evil Jews that are trying to sneak into their homes to kill them at night. You know why? Because that's not happening.
Ben is on patrol right now in Judea. He joins us live via Skype. Ben, tell us, do you do this every night? Is it really necessary?
Yes, sir. It's extremely necessary in order to keep the peace in the area, in order to keep the enemy from getting too close to the children sleeping behind me right now. It's absolutely vital. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Have you had any recent confrontations, any intruders?
We have, even as recently as 11:15 last night, just around 24 hours ago, one of our cameras on the eastern sector that faced Bethlehem and faced our eastern hill alerted us to somebody that was trying to come up the eastern hill towards our community, which caused our security vehicle to immediately jump to that area, as well as a very fast response from the Israeli army. They took him into custody, and that's as far as I know right now.
So you actually prevented a possible terrorist attack there?
Yes, sir. Myself and the other members on our team, they did a great job, and I might just be a small part of that.
What do most Israelis think of these patrols, Ben? Are they supportive of you?
Absolutely. Every Israeli that has ever served in the IDF, my friends, my brothers here, they understand precisely why I do what I do. They don't question it. As a matter of fact, I picked up a police officer on the way here up the hill for this conversation, and he said, Ben, in Hebrew, he said, Ben, when you want, you call me and I'll be there with you. So they get it, and they are extremely appreciative.
Well, Ben, tell me how this works now. Do people sign up for training? Are they paid? Do they volunteer to patrol? How does that work?
No, sir, we are not paid at all. I'm a member of a rapid response team, a counter-terror response team here in my community, which is quite normal amongst the communities in Judea and Samaria. We're just fathers, husbands, people that are professionals, that after a hard day at work, we always know that our radio might go off at any moment. We have to gear up, get out of that house all hours, day and night, in order to put our bodies and our emotions and our souls on the line in order to protect these families. We don't receive anything but the honor of doing so. And that's enough for me.
Ben, you know, most Americans probably don't even know about this. They don't know that you're on patrol there. They don't know the threats against people as they sleep. What can our viewers do to help you in your efforts to protect Israelis from terror?
Well, first of all, here I stand on hallowed grounds. I'm in the spinal column of Israel, Judea, with Bethlehem to my back. We can all pray for the peace of Israel. We can all try to experience unity. That alone will bring about a safer Israel and a safer America. Beyond that, there are so many fine organizations out there that can help people just like me do what I'm doing right now to make us feel like we have brothers and sisters throughout the world that truly do care. And come to Israel. Come visit me in Israel and experience it like never before.
It's a special place, Ben, and you're a special person for what you're doing. We will be praying. Thank you, and God bless you.
God bless you, and God bless every single person watching this right now. You have my utmost respect.
Moving on to the home front, we've gotten some disturbing news from North Korea and their recent threat against the U.S. when it comes to their use of the ICBM missile. U.S. officials are warning that the country will be able to use their ICBM as early as next year. And that could threaten North American cities with atomic weapons. Now, here to discuss this issue is CBN's national security correspondent, Erik Rosales. Erik, good to see you again. What should we be most concerned about when it comes to this latest threat?
Well, I tell you what, Gary, the thing that we have to be concerned about is the state of Alaska. That is well within the 4,000 kilometers that this latest missile test did in fact reach. As it went up into the air, if it would have been at a different trajectory, it could have actually hit the state of Alaska, and that has a lot of those people concerned as well, along with people here in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon. So, and what we're hearing right now is that North Korea is in fact dismissing all of the Trump sanctions and everything else, and they are actually preparing for yet another missile test that's going to take place very soon.
Well, it doesn't seem like this is going to let up. Was this a shock to the Pentagon about how advanced they've become on this?
Yeah, you know, everybody was saying that it's, you know, if we leave them alone and we don't do anything, then it's then they're going to be able to develop this intercontinental ballistic missile and with a nuclear warhead on top. And sure enough, it looks as if at the end of next year that they could actually have it. And that has a lot of people concerned, top military officials at the Pentagon.
Now, Erik, I know we've got the THAAD missile system being deployed in South Korea, but that's not really effective, is it, against a long-range ICBM?
Well, so far, the latest test that we did do a couple of months ago, it was successful. But I tell you what, it depends on the number of ballistic missiles that North Korea would actually shoot off. Let's say right now what we have in the THAAD system in South Korea, we have a total of 6 anti-missile defenses over there. But if they shoot off more than 6 missiles, then in fact, that would be a grave concern for the people in Alaska up in our area.
Okay, now Trump has vowed that he would confront North Korea very strongly if they didn't stop their advances, and time looks as if it's running out, so what will he do?
Well, he did say that in Poland. You know, he did say that he would actually be having to take some sort of initiative to stop them. And, you know, honestly, I firmly believe that we actually may be bringing in a black ops unit to the area and maybe even take out Kim Jong-un and then take no responsibility for it. That would be one option that a lot of people are talking about over at the Pentagon. And, you know, that is not coming from Pentagon sources. It's just people that are talking around the military table. We're hearing that possibly a black ops unit could actually go in and maybe take care of the issue.
Well, what is China and South Korea doing? How are they responding to this?
Well, China, of course, we continue to try and be working with China, diplomatic, but as of right now, you know, much of their trade is coming from North Korea as well. So economically, it would not be feasible for them to be able to bring any more sanctions against North Korea, and that has a lot of the Pentagon folks concerned.
And Erik, I can't let you go without asking you about some tweets that President Trump has put out
Yes.
that surprised everyone. Basically, he's saying no transgenders in the military. Tell us about that.
That is correct. You know, currently on Capitol Hill, lawmakers were currently discussing ways to possibly keep transgenders from doing sex changes and costing the military billions of dollars. And actually, Mad Dog Mattis actually said that he was going to put off the issue until next year. But it ended up that Trump just recently tweeted that no transgenders will be allowed in the military at all after he consulted with his generals and made that decision. And that has a lot of people up on Capitol Hill on both sides of the table, you know, making statements. Republicans actually saying that he's our commander-in-chief and that we are going to honor his request, where you have the Democrats are calling it, like Nancy Pelosi, are calling it just a grave situation for the LGBT community out there.
And a good opportunity for them to raise money, right? The liberals to raise money, and I'm sure we're going to see some lawsuits.
We are certainly going to see some lawsuits, and yes, when it comes down to politics, of course, when you have a situation like this and when Trump takes a stance like this, you have the other side using it as a possible money-making situation.
Okay, Erik Rosales, our man in Washington, D.C., thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Gary.
And here with me now is CBN News' Emily Jones, who is also president of her Christians United for Israel chapter at Regent University. And she's here to talk about acts of violence taking place on college campuses across the United States. And that stems from the Students for Justice in Palestine National Club. Emily, first I want to address NYU's activist group that painted the terrorists as victims after they killed an officer at the Temple Mount. Now, they're calling the terrorist deaths an execution. And as you can see here, they're laying on the ground like they're dead to honor these attackers. So what kind of brainwashing have these students gone under?
Gary, they're going under the same brainwashing that we're seeing Palestinians in the West Bank, who are the brainwashing they're going under, that these terrorists are martyrs, that they actually have a just cause that they are fighting for. And so it's no surprise that Students for Justice in Palestine are viewing these people as freedom fighters. And whenever time these terrorists are killed, it's always Israel's fault. It's always Israel executing. It's always Israel misstepping. And it's not true. And so it's the same terrorism brainwashing that we're seeing that's going on in the West Bank. So
they're just taking what's going on there, putting it over here in America.
Absolutely.
Well, now tell us a little bit about the Students for Justice in Palestine.
So Students for Justice in Palestine, you would say justice, it sounds very appealing, but it's not. It is actually a movement on our college campuses that seeks to delegitimize the state of Israel, that seeks to destroy the state of Israel, at least ideologically. It seeks to speak to our future leaders, our future politicians and policy members on our college campuses and say that Israel is an evil Nazi apartheid state. These are all terms that they've used. And so they're trying to push, one of their biggest things they're trying to push is the boycotts, divestments, and sanctions movements against Israel, which seeks to strangle Israel economically so that they're hurting Israel. But also they're trying to influence the minds of their college professors, of their fellow students, that Israel is evil and they are what's wrong with the Middle East today.
Now they also express their sadness for the terrorist deaths by sharing a Facebook post that stated 3 Palestinian teens were executed this evening by Zionist occupation forces at the Damascus Gate in occupied Jerusalem. Occupied. They always say occupied.
Yeah, they always say occupied.
And Zionist.
And Zionist, as if Zionist is a bad word. They always say occupied to trigger thoughts of colonialism and genocide and those things when it is simply not true. Israel is not occupying Jerusalem. In fact, Israel actually was able to recapture Jerusalem in 1967 after Arab armies surrounded Israel trying to completely annihilate her, and Israel won that territory back. And let's not forget, before 1967, 1967, when Jerusalem was in control of the Arabs, Jews were not allowed to go to the Temple Mount. Christians were not allowed to go to the Temple Mount. And I even remember when I went to the Temple Mount 2 years ago, and it is under Jordanian control. I remember walking up to the Temple Mount and outside seeing trash cans full of Bibles and necklaces with crosses on it. So Israel does have sovereignty in some parts of Jerusalem, and it's important that they do because they give us the religious freedom that we're looking for.
Now, before we let you go, I have to mention that you are a big part of CUFI.
Yeah.
And you recently spoke at one of the events in Washington, D.C., along with President Pence. You were his opening act.
Yes.
So let's listen to what you said.
Anti-Semitism is happening now. It is today's headlines. But what is so disgusting is what was once reviled as blatant anti-Semitism is now called the new social justice movement. Except this time, there are no safe spaces for Jews, especially Zionist ones. It was the type of evil that we see in the Bible, evil disguised as light. It is the type of evil that looked me dead in the face and told me Israel is a Nazi state, when in fact it is the only place in the Middle East where democracy reigns, and I can walk freely both as a Christian and a woman.
Emily, thank you for standing up for Israel, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Of course.
Allie, thank you for being with us here today. So what inspired you to take this stand?
Well, I was actually reacting to an article I had read online in which a mom was shaming her two sons, one of whom was actually suicidal. She shamed them for being dangerous, for being unsafe, for even subconsciously contributing to rape culture. She even describes her sons as being respectable, being kind, being nice to women, being sweet boys, but still, because of their inherent toxic masculinity and maleness, she said that they were dangerous and that they were detrimental to society. And I've heard this kind of dogma over and over again from third wave feminists, certainly not all feminists, but instead of elevating women, strengthening women, telling little girls to be bold and strong, they're instead telling boys not to be strong. They're emasculating them, weakening them, making them feel embarrassed and ashamed for being men in an effort to elevate women. In my opinion, that's not feminism. That's not equality. That's not how you do it. So I wanted to send a word of encouragement, not just to men, but to boys, that you're appreciated for who you are. And your maleness is something that is God-given and unique, and it contributes to society in a way that, frankly, females can't, and vice versa. Women also have a very unique and important role in society as well. But making those roles homogenous or in some way weakening boys, it's not going to work. We're going to get a generation of wusses who can't lead or do anything or protect their country or protect their family. I don't think that's what we want. And in their hearts, I don't think that's what feminists want either.
So why do you think the left is wrong about women when it comes to extreme feminism? And I can tell you, as a baby boomer myself, I still wonder how they can be all about women's rights in the workplace when men can now be considered female based on feelings.
Right. And again, if gender, if it's just kind of this idea that you feel that I feel male today or feel female tomorrow, then what rights should a female have that a male don't? Or how can you be fighting for the rights of something that is largely based on feeling? Who are you fighting for? If female is just a state of mind, why are we even talking about rights? Because there's really should be no talk of male versus female, rights versus not rights, feminism versus not feminism, if all gender is the same. So again, I don't think that they've really thought through their own thinking and their own logic and their own philosophy to see that at the end it ends up caving in on itself.
And it even becomes more confusing. The feminists call Ivanka Trump too girly. Like this reporter, listen to this. Can they get more hypocritical?
Also, it's a little muddy about not taking a salary while having the status of being a federal employee, yet not having to be held to different ethical standards also saying that she doesn't want to be involved in politics, yet sitting in for her father at the G20.
Right, with big bows on her sleeve. I mean, I don't mean to sound sexist. It can be dangerous to comment on what women wear, but the fact that she sat in for her father in a dress that was so incredibly ornamental was such a contradiction in terms. And I think that what we see is that in patriarchal, authoritarian societies, daughters have great value. They are property. And the message that she is sending about her own value, about her place in the White House, and about the place of women in this administration, I think are really pretty frightening. So,
do you think you're opening yourself up about the bows?
Are you looking at Twitter yet? I mean,
not yet.
You know, I just have. That was it's a pink dress with big bows on the elbows. There's something incredibly ornamental. That's not a dress that's made for work. That's not a dress that's made to go out in the world and make a difference. That is a dress that is designed to show off your girliness. And, you know, God bless her, show it off. But don't then tell us that you're crusading for an equal place for women at the table, because you're not.
But so you can't be a feminist and be girly at the same time?
You can be a feminist and be girly. We all have our girly days, but I think showing up, taking your father's seat in a pink dress with big bows on the sleeves is really an interesting message. I also don't know why H.R. McMaster and Rex Tillerson didn't quit on the spot, that they wouldn't sit in, that she would get to sit there. I mean, they're playing. There's some head games going on here, and I'm just gonna, you know, break it down. I know Twitter's waiting for me, Thomas, but I'm giving you my unfiltered reaction.
So what do you think?
It's such a I want to say a double-edged sword, but it's really a conundrum when it comes to feminists. Either you're too girly or too young or too immature or just not strong enough, not empowered enough, or you're too much the other way where you're denying your femininity and, you know, you're still wrong. So it's basically you can't win. And the funny thing is about that is that feminists claim to be about choice. That's their chief mantra, is that it's all about choices. Be whoever you want to be. Everything is fluid. Nothing's right. Nothing's wrong. What they really mean by that is, yeah, there's no right or wrong as long as you don't disagree with us. And as long as you fit into our exact ideological, political molds, then you're fine. But anything outside of that, if you're conservative, if you're pro-life, if you are against any part of the leftist agenda, then you're no longer a feminist and you're a disgrace to females. I, for one, being a pro-life conservative female, have gotten that lots of times. Okay,
Allie Stuckey, you're the Conservative Millennial. We look forward to more reports. Glad to see that you're on the blaze now. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you so much.
Momentum is growing in the U.S. Congress to reduce aid to the Palestinian Authority because it continues to actually pay the families of terrorists. That's right. If you're a Palestinian and your son or daughter kills an Israeli or ends up in prison for attempted murder of a Jew, you'll likely receive a payment from the PA of at least $3,000 per month. Now, that's more than twice the monthly salary of the average Palestinian laborer. It's a stipend for what the Palestinians call martyrdom. But actually, they're inciting violence, terrorism against Israelis. Now, here's the rub. Did you know the United States sent about $700 million of your tax dollars to the Palestinian Authority last year? In fact, our country sends more support than any country to help the PA. So indirectly, ladies and gentlemen, you are encouraging acts of terrorism against innocent Israelis, the murder of America's best friends in the Middle East. Kill a Jew or go to jail and you get big bucks. More than $1 billion have been spent on these awards in the past 4 years. Now, we told you earlier about the recent murder of an Israeli family, the Solomons. They were slaughtered in their home on the Sabbath. The killer's family will likely receive payment from the PA for that act of terror and his so-called martyrdom against the Zionist settlers. Now, we Americans can't do much to protect Israelis like the Solomons in their homes. But thank God for people like Ben Goldstein on patrol in the neighborhoods at night. What we can do here in America is stop a big incentive for the Palestinians to commit these brutal acts of terror. The bill being considered by the U.S. Congress is known as the Taylor Force Act. It's named after a 28-year-old U.S. military academy graduate, an Army veteran, who was stabbed to death as he toured Israel last year. Now, it cuts aid to the PA unless it stops paying stipends to terrorist families. Congress should pass this legislation, and President Trump should sign it. It sends a clear signal to the Palestinian people that we as Americans are opposed to our tax dollars being used to subsidize terrorism. We're against encouraging, incentivizing the murder of innocent Israelis, our friends in the Middle East. Now, you may contact your representative or your senator at the Capitol switchboard phone number to let them know how you feel about this. Now, the switchboard number is 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. And, of course, first you need to know the name of your member of Congress, don't you? So if you don't know, there's a great website you may log on to called whoismyrepresentative.com. It's very good. I've tried it. Just type in your zip code, and your members of Congress will pop up. Voila. And don't forget, we're told in 1 Timothy 6:10, the love of money, not money itself, the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. In this case, terrorism and murder. Let's not participate in that evil. That's it from the Global Lane this week. We'll see you next time. Be blessed.